I wanted to get into some couple topics today before we close out this show.
Mhm.
And, the first one being, so we had a lot of really talented wide receivers get drafted last year, right? So,
Right.
and some of them had some really good seasons, and some of them didn't have a great season. So, what I want to talk about with you today is who are some guys, and I'll start it off, but who are some guys that you think can either have a breakout season or can have a bust type of year? So, and I'll start with a guy out of Tennessee, and I'll get your thoughts on this guy and then whoever you think is next, right? So, I have a guy, Treylon Burks. He was drafted very high. I won't say high, but in second round, if I'm not mistaken, for Tennessee Titans. And he was supposed to be the quote unquote replacement for AJ Brown, right? I mean, it's like,
Right.
go, like what a gaff that was for the for the what you call it, the Tennessee Titans. He really didn't do much. He had 400 and something yards, 300 and only 33 catches all year, and I believe one touchdown. So, do you think it's obvious he needs to step up, but do you think, given the quarterback situation there now, they still got Ryan Tannehill, and then they just drafted Will Levis out of Kentucky. Do you think he's poised to have a breakout season, or do you think we're going to see more of what we saw last year with Treylon Burks?
In all honesty, you take a receiver that high in the first round, their first year is not really much of an impact year if you look at the track record for
Right.
receivers taken in the first round. I do believe the quarterback play had a lot to do with that due to the fact they went from Tannehill to Malik Willis, and then they ended the season with Josh
I know,
Dobbs.
right? It's true.
And this team never really found their footing after they beat Green Bay the middle of the season because they
Right.
unraveled and they never saw another win.
Right.
But I do believe he's poised to have a breakout year depending on what happens with the quarterback situation between Will Levis and Ryan Tannehill. But if Tannehill stinks it up, I do believe Will Levis will be inserted into the lineup. And there's also been some reports from Titans camp that Mike Vrabel may have a little bit interest in bringing in DeAndre Hopkins. So
Right.
that variable kind of plays into
Right.
equation as well. But the ceiling is very high for him from what I read. His
Yeah,
confidence
definitely.
is through the roof. And I think he can be poised to have close to 1,000 yards, depending on the quarterback situation to start the season.
Wow,
But
1,000 yards.
if he can catch fire or lightning in a bottle midway through the second half of the season, I think he could push 1,000 yards. But it all boils down to, does Mike Vrabel stick it out with Tannehill to start the season, or
Right.
do they insert Will Levis? And
Gotcha.
the philosophy of this team moving forward, do they eventually move away from running the ball with Derrick Henry, or do they go with the air raid to kind of, get up with the modern NFL?
Right. No, that's interesting, man. I hopefully it works out for him, but if not, he'll just be known as the fake AJ Brown at the end of the day. So,
Right.
who's somebody else that you think a second year wide receiver that may have a bust out or a breakout season?
I'm going to go with Pickens.
Yep, I like him.
Pickens, to me, once he had that catch against the Browns that he
Yeah.
channeled his inner OBJ, I said to myself, this kid is going to be a star in this league.
Yeah.
He was kind of flew under the radar in the shadows of Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave,
Yep.
who went in the first round. But Pickens showed some flash.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And just like with his production, is based upon the quarterback play.
Oh, yeah.
Because they started with, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they start with they started with Mitch Trubisky,
Yep.
then he went to Pickett,
Yep.
back to Mitch Trubisky, and what do we know about Pittsburgh? They draft receivers really well,
They do.
and they're known for their defense. But you got to give Mike Tomlin his flowers for kind of riding this ship.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And for me, I believe that Pickens is due for a breakout year, and Kenny Pickett can find some footing in year two, and they can create that connection.
Yeah.
That's going to be a dark horse, scary quarterback wide receiver duo.
Oh
in my
yeah.
humble opinion.
Oh, absolutely. If you think about it, this guy had over 800 yards, 52 catches, and 4 touchdowns. Right? You know,
Hmm.
he was kind of rumbling a little bit. He thought he should have made the Pro Bowl. To be fair, there were some other guys that were more deserving than him, but a very fantastic start to his NFL career for sure. Now, another guy that I thought he kind of started kind of rocky, but I thought he picked it up towards the end is Christian Watson from Green Bay. Now, we
Hmm.
all remember him from dropping the touchdown against the Minnesota Vikings. I believe it was game one, literally one of the first plays for the season for the Packers, and it kind of tumbled. It was like a snowball effect, but then he kind of picked it up, unfortunately, against our Cowboys. But
Unfortunately.
Christian Watson, what are your thoughts on him? He turned out 611 yards, 41 catches, and 7 touchdowns type of season. And now he's, it's no more Aaron Rodgers now. Now enter Jordan Love. What's your thoughts on Christian Watson?
My thoughts on Christian Watson, pick up where he left off last season
Yeah.
near the end. He started to emerge as the wide receiver of the future for this team.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys that, to me, had big shoes to fill, just like Treylon Burks in Tennessee with the
Yep.
departure of A.J. Brown and
Yeah,
then the
that's a
departure
great
of
point. That's a
Devontae
great point.
Adams in Green Bay.
Great point.
And he had Butterfingers to start the season. And when you have Butterfingers with, some would say, arguably the best throw of the football we've ever seen,
Yeah,
and
that's
you end
true.
up in the doghouse.
Oh, big
But
time.
as we saw, the biggest game, the breakout game for him came against our Cowboys,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And as I went back and watched that game one more time, as painfully as it was, he looks the part of a number one receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And now with Jordan Love in the mix, I think they're going to build a great rapport.
Yep.
And he too could be pretty close to 1,000 yards as
Oh
well.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I believe that he can eclipse it, but if Jordan Love is kind of struggles, again, wide receiver production is based on quarterback play.
Right.
So to me, Watson is going to fly under the radar as well, if truth be told.
Right.
Can he pick up where he left off from 2022 going into this year with Jordan Love under center and the dark cloud that's no longer hanging over this franchise with the departure of Aaron Rodgers? They still got a decent run game with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, decent offensive line. I think Christian Watson is going to be going to be a top 7 receiver in this league, if not top
Oh wow.
10.
Wow.
That's just theoretically speaking and
Right.
looking at it from a logical standpoint.
Yeah.
But he emerged as
Yeah.
the
The
number
guy
one
there in Green Bay.
receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anybody else that you could think of that could maybe possibly break out or bust?
In all honesty, I mean, let's start in New York with the Jets with Garrett Wilson.
Okay. Yeah. And that's a good point. I was going to leave them out because they were studs last year, but you're right. I mean, why not bring them up, right? Garrett Wilson, tremendous year last year and his breakout season as an NFL wide receiver. Yeah, let's hear what you have to say about him.
With Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback.
As the guy. Yeah.
I thought about this the last 24 hours when you sent me the topics and everything to read up on.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Garrett Wilson is going to be in the top 5 for receiving yards. I honestly believe that because last year he had over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns, and was still offensive rookie of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And you add another 300 yards to that, he's going to have another breakout year. His touchdown reception, his touchdowns are going to go up. It's going to he'll hit at least 9 or 10. So he's going to push double-digit touchdown receptions.
Right.
And he's going to be a reliable target for Aaron Rodgers because we know he can play. Ohio State is wide receiver U.
It's becoming that way. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
becoming that way. And if the Jets can get rolling early with that rapport, if Aaron Rodgers just develops that rapport and that trust,
Right.
I'm not saying Garrett Wilson can be a technician like Devontae Adams, but once he starts to find his footing
Right.
and knows where Aaron Rodgers is going with the football, that too could be a deadly combo.
Absolutely. I agree. I actually agree.
And then as we shift down to New Orleans with Chris Olave,
Yeah.
had
Like him.
four touchdown receptions and still eclipsed 1,000 yards with the quarterback carousel of Andy Dalton and Taysom Hill and
Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston. And if it wasn't for the concussion, the middle of the season,
Right.
he was in running for offensive rookie of the
He
year.
was. He was. And that's why I'm not really, I wasn't worried about him because I felt like he's that dude anyway. And same thing with Garrett Wilson. Listen, they both played with I wouldn't say subpar quarterback. Garrett Wilson did, obviously, but Chris Olave didn't. He played with some guys, right? Andy Dalton, I get it. He's not the same Andy Dalton from Cincinnati, but he's still a good quarterback, obviously. So I wasn't really worried about those kind of guys. But you're right. I mean, they're definitely gonna. I think they're gonna have a breakout season guaranteed. Period. Like even more so than what they did. And then the final guy I want to talk about, and he's kind of like an honorable mention. He didn't play last year. Obviously, he was drafted by the Houston Texans. Jonathan Mechie. He didn't play
Mm-hmm.
obviously because he was diagnosed with leukemia. So I think he has all of the opportunity to go and be a stud in Houston. You think about their wide receiver room. Robert Woods. They drafted Tank Dell out of Houston this last draft. There
Mm-hmm.
really isn't a lot of guys in that room, and I think John Mechie, when we last saw him play football, the guy is a really great player. And then you pair
Right.
him with CJ Stroud there. We'll see how they get it going. So I think I'm hoping, I'm rooting for him to have a great season because he's battling leukemia. Now, if he doesn't have a great season, I'm not going to be down on him because listen, I've never had leukemia. I hope I never have leukemia. I hope no one that I know has leukemia. But I can only imagine going from being really sick on the verge of possibly having some type of life-threatening, illness to coming
Mm-hmm.
back and playing in the National Football League. That in alone is a blessing in itself. And I hope that he does have a great season because of that fact. Like that's the only reason why, but we'll see how it works out for him there. So those were great guys that we talked about. I think all of them, to me, the only one that I'm kind of really not sold on is the Burks. But I get it. Quarterback plays is an issue there. But I just didn't see anything from him that I was like, dang, you know what? I can see this guy maybe doing something if he does get a quarterback. So we'll have to wait and see. But we got some months ahead of us, and maybe we can circle back. And you and I can we can pick up where we left off on this particular topic. All right.